If you have been following, ooh, that was aggressive. I hit the counter and it started shaking the camera. If you've been following my sourdough journey, you know that currently, right now, as we speak, my very first sourdough loaf is in that oven right back there, baking. And that means we need something to put on it. So I'm going to make some butter. Butter is super easy. You can do it in a mason jar. You just got to shake it up really good. But me, I have a tendency to be a bit extra. So I like to use this hand crank churn that I got on Amazon.com. I think the most important tip when it comes to making butter is making sure that your heavy cream is room temperature. I did this the first time. It was not room temperature. It took me a couple of hours. Since then, I have learned if you let it come to room temperature, it does not take anywhere near as long. Give it a good one more. No big deal. That could have been a lot worse. Make sure that the top is on your cream before you shake it up because that happens. I like to fill it up like halfway just because it gives it more room. And that does mean that you have to go back through it again and just do it again. But the cool thing is you don't have to clean this before you move on to another batch. All right. I had to take a quick pause. The handle is coming loose and no, up here. The handle is coming loose and so I need to tighten it so it doesn't fly off the handle. What? Thank you, my dear. My hero. All right, that's it. The butter, she's a done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to strain off all of the buttermilk. I'm going to set that aside and then I'm going to wash the butter. Okay, so I'm going to line a clean bowl with a cheesecloth. And then I'm just going to dump all the contents of my butter jar into the cloth and let the buttermilk strain out. The way I like to start with washing my butter is I take the butter and the buttermilk and the bowl and the cheesecloth and everything, and I put it in my refrigerator for like 30 minutes till whenever I remember to come back and work on it. I just want this to firm up so that when I start squeezing it to get all of the buttermilk out of the butter, it doesn't come through the cheesecloth as much. You don't lose as much butter. Okay, so a certain amount of time has elapsed. Our butter is nice and cold, so I'm going to remove the butter in the cheesecloth, set it to the side. I'm going to take the buttermilk and I'm going to transfer it to a mason jar. I'm not going to throw this away because I will use this for many multitudes of things. I've used it to make biscuits. I've used it in muffins. Shrimp po' boys. I've used it to make shrimp po' boys, to dredge the shrimp with. So there's lots of things you can do with buttermilk, up to and including baking. So don't throw this away. I'm going to fill this bowl with extremely cold water. Okay, so we've got our water, and I use filtered water because I live in Arizona and our water tastes like terrible. So you can see just from the butter just sitting in the water how it's already starting to leach that buttermilk out, and that's what we're trying to get out of the butter. So basically we're going to squeeze the butter until the water no longer looks like buttermilk or skim milk. I just feel like this is the best way to wash the butter because you don't lose as much in the process through the cheesecloth or on your hands. Now we're just going to do this process over and over and over again until this water runs clear. Okay, so this is my third wash of this butter. And you can see that the water is not nearly as cloudy as it was before. So basically, I just submerge it in the water and I press it, I turn it over, and I press it again. I'll pick it up, I'll squeeze it out, and then just continue to repeat the process until the water is clear. Now, once you are relatively confident that you've got all of the buttermilk rinsed out of the butter, I like to put it in some clean water and put it back in the refrigerator so that it can harden up, so that I can then go through and squeeze all of the water, all of the clean water out of the butter. I'm going to do that process now. I'm just going to kind of fold it over and squeeze it until you just don't see any more water kind of coming out in between your fingers and falling into the bowl. And you do this to keep the butter from going rancid. But if your family goes through butter the way that my family goes through butter, there's probably not a whole lot of chance of it going rancid anyway. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. At this point, I take just regular bowl, put my butter in it, and let it come to room temperature, because the next step is we're going to mold it. The best tool that I have found for this process is a silicone spatula. Obviously, you can use a teaspoon, a tablespoon, a butter knife, your own fingers, whatever you want. This is the mold that I'm using. You can get molds in any shape or size, and you can get little designs and all that, but this, we're just going with the straight stick of butter. I just start cutting pieces of the butter off of the block and just scooping it into the mold, just a little bit at a time. And the mold itself is silicone, so if you get a little bit on the edges, it's no big deal. You can just scrape it right off and just work it down into the corners. And this mold will make a full pound of butter. I only did about half of a quart of cream for this batch of butter, so I'll probably get like maybe 2 sticks. Continue to work it in just like this. And then when it starts to squeeze out that way, I like to hold it from the inside and just kind of scrape it. And it's not going to be perfect. This is homemade butter after all. It's supposed to be rustic. Just take my gloved hands and just kind of continue to pat it in. And then when I feel like I've got it pretty much filled up, just take my spatula and I just scrape it along the top. And then anything that needs to get filled in, just continue to go over it until it's completely smooth and perfect. And then you move on to the next one. And you do the exact same process. All right, and there you have it. You have 2 perfect full sticks of butter. Now, this is obviously unsalted butter. If I wanted to salt this in this bowl, I would have added salt or sugar, cinnamon, herbs, garlic, anything you wanted to add to it, mix it up really, really good, and then transferred it into the mold. When I do the rest of my cream from the quart that I use to make this, I will make salted butter, but I'm going to have 2 sticks of unsalted. I just take my little lid right here, pop that on, and this goes right in the refrigerator. And you've got fresh butter that you made. You know exactly where it came from. You know exactly what went into it. And trust me, it's better than anything you're going to buy at the store.